know, I'm a pretty big hiker, and also this past year, I spent a couple weeks in Palestine and Israel, preparing for a trip I'm going to be leaving in a few months in May to lead another trip. I'm preparing to lead another trip. And this one, the upcoming ones, will be for young adults primarily. And the official trip I went on last year was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I got to meet and hear a bunch of people and hear the stories of a bunch of amazing young adult Lutheran Palestinians and their pastors as well. I got to learn about how different groups are working for a just peace there in the Holy Land. I got to see Old City Jerusalem and Bethlehem, where Christians have worshipped for many, many centuries. And all that was absolutely amazing, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to go on a real hike. I mean, you hear about folks going up to on top of mountains for all sorts of important things throughout the Bible, and you think that they would have provided you with an opportunity to walk up one of those mountains. Clearly. I mean, it's where everyone goes for all the important stuff, but seemingly. So I figured we could at least walk up one of the mountains. And with this very legitimate concern in mind, I decided to add a couple of extra days to my trip on my own, and rented what felt like this tiny little toy car, and decided to drive off on my own throughout the Holy Land to visit a couple of biblically significant mountains, and then walk them. Now, hanging out on Mount Carmel, which is in the northern part of Israel, in Haifa, right on the sea, and that's where Elijah spent most of his time. Not in today's story that featured Elijah, but in most of the other ones. That was quite literally a trip to the beach, because it really was a trip to the beach. But on my other big walk on a mountain, on the very last day in Palestine and Israel, after truly what was a life-changing trip, I had a bit more of a complicated experience. I decided to walk around Mount Tabor, which is traditionally at least known, and perhaps likely was, the site of the Transfiguration, the site of the gospel story that we heard today, where Peter, James, and John were able to miraculously glimpse, there's all sorts of interpretations of what they actually saw, but perhaps one of the easiest way to say it is that they were able to glimpse Christ in all his divine glory, at least for a fleeting moment. Now, this was an interesting day. I got the car rented, and since a lot of the signs weren't very much English, I almost got in a few car accidents on the way there, but it worked out. Ended up driving up a fair bit of the Mount of the Transfiguration, and getting in the parking lot. Of course, the Orthodox Church is over here, and the Roman Catholic Church is right here, and there's a big wall in between them. But getting to the parking lot, and I am all ready, raring to go. I had this, very amazing experience, and I'm now, as I said in the children's sermon, Transfiguration Sunday, that it's one of these stories that's really important to me. I'm ready to reflect and have all these deep, inspiring, divine thoughts on top of the Mount of the Transfiguration. Just reflect on all these things I experienced over the last couple of weeks in the Holy Land. So I get out, and I'm walking around, and it's about sort of like a 2-mile around path around the summit. It's not really a major hike, but just, kind of a nice stroll. And it's interesting. So I'm walking, and the actual churches aren't open yet, so I can't go into them. So I'm just walking along this path, and there's a bunch of people hang gliding around, and there's all this music blaring up from the town beneath. Not this sort of divine, silent mountaintop experience, really. And I just keep walking around, and I'm trying to grasp onto some sort of emotional, divine experience I don't even really know, some sort of meaningful thing, and nothing's really coming. I don't know, has anyone ever had that sort of experience before, where they're at in a place that is feels like it's important, and you're supposed to have some sort of deep, meaningful experience, but it's just not, you're just not feeling it? Does anyone know what I'm talking about at all?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just, the weird pastor guy that has these. And it's just not happening. I don't know. And there's as majestic as I thought it would be, and and that sort of thing. And I keep walking, and actually I have some pictures on my computer if you want to look at what it looks like afterwards, after service. But well, that's another thing too. My camera broke. My camera broke, so I was at that point. It was before I had a fancy phone, so I had at that point I still had a flip phone that actually you could see in museums at the time, and that was all I had to take pictures of my majestic mountaintop experience with, and that was a little bit of a bummer. I didn't even have a selfie stick, and so that was bad. And I'm just walking around this mountain, and I'm just not feeling anything, And then finally, I get. There's all these, old crumbling walls. I'm like, oh, some ancient ruins of something important or something like that. And I finally get over there, and I'm just sitting in this one, what I thought was like the sort of remains of this old ancient garden or something on top of the mountain Transfiguration. I think, oh, this is a really nice, pretty spot. I'll sit here and be, act like a typical future pastor and reflect on deep thoughts or something. And I sit there for a few minutes, and then I see the bells ring and the church is open, so I go walk over to the Roman Catholic church. And I'm like, oh wow, that spot over there by that crumbling wall is really beautiful. And then of course they tell me, oh yeah, that's pretty much where like the garbage dump and outhouses were for a certain number of years. Yeah. It was a very pretty place for outhouses and to do garbage, yes. But anyway, I think that. And then, I go into the church, and like the monks aren't particularly nice, and it was fine. It was very pretty. But so I ended up, driving all the way back, and I realized my car rental was back late because I got lost in the west in random amount of olives. It was a mess. But anyway, it was still a good day. And I think the reason it was a good day was because it helped me really think about these sort of moments. These transfiguration moments. I think all too often, one of the reasons that we even go to church, have religion at all, why humans invented this religion thing, or however you want to describe that, is sort of kind of sometimes chasing after these moments, right? These sort of transcendent moments, these moments where we experience something meaningful. It's not even really all that easy to describe. I mean, even the gospel writer, Mark, it's hard for him to describe. He sort of describes it as Jesus was whiter than anything that anyone could ever bleach. It's sort of this awkward description, this sort of transcendent experience that we can't really ever describe. We spend our whole lives in some ways chasing after these moments and kind of sad when we think they should come and they don't, or sad after we've strived after some sort of goal for many years and attained it, and then it doesn't feel as meaningful as we thought it would be, or something like that. And then at other times, when we don't expect we're going to have one of these important moments, maybe we're just walking down the street and someone says a nice word to us, we do have one of these transcendent moments. So, in the end, what this holiday is about, Sunday of the Transfiguration, and why I love it so much, is that it's a completely I think it strips down all the trappings of religion and sort of, in the end, is talking about this completely universal human experience. Whether, as Christians, we certainly think about it in terms of Christ, but I think for everybody, no matter who they are, even if they aren't religious, there is a certain aspect of we spend our whole lives chasing after these moments of something that breaks through the clouds of our everyday existence, right? And it's something that we can all universally, maybe not talk about, because there's not really good words for it, but at least share. And it's something, by the way, I think in the end this is good news, that we can't really control. We can't selfie stick these transcendent, amazing moments. They just happen. Sometimes when we expect them, sometimes when we don't, oftentimes when we don't expect them. And I think one of the best things we can do as Christians is, as believers in Christ, to gather together and celebrate. And recognize that they do happen. And give thanks for when they do happen. And when I reflect on often reflect on what is the whole purpose of this church thing, why do we gather Sunday after Sunday despite it being, -50 degrees out, or whatever it is out there. And in the end, I think one of the biggest reasons we do this is simply to celebrate and recognize that on a fairly regular basis, sometimes more often than other times, and sometimes when we're expecting it, and sometimes when we're not, that God is deeply breaking into our lives. And we can't control it really. We don't know when it's going to happen really. But we can gather together and recognize it and celebrate it. That God is going to break into our lives. I mean, every single person in this room has had those moments. And God continues to break into our lives when we're recognizing it and when we're not. And that there's not really much of a better way to describe it, but that is a truly amazing thing. And that we can gather together in community and share those moments with each other and celebrate those moments with each other and give thanks for those moments with each other. And I think in the end, that is an aspect of the gospel that's not amazingly, that's not all exactly describable, but is certainly there. And in that sort of awkward way that you can't really describe the Transfiguration in the end, I'm going to end the sermon in an awkward way as well. So, thank you so much. Have a great Sunday, and please just keep those moments in mind and celebrate those moments where God is constantly breaking into. Amen.